Hey, shalom, 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 everybody. How y'all doing? Welcome back to Reading with Shiloh. We out here. I'm out here. Hope everybody's doing good today. Hope everybody's up in there, up in there, ready, ready to move forward. Because you have everything that you need to succeed. And if you don't, there's game more stuff. So we're here in the next session of Reading with Shiloh. We are almost done with Mr. Mel Watkins' book On the Real Side. We the history of African American comedy from slavery to Chris Rock. We are on chapter 13. That's what we're about to start today. Chapter 13. Prior and thereafter is the prior and thereafter. It's about 7 pages. I want to look at it a little lengthy. The whole chapter 13 is going to be a long one. Yeah, the whole chapter 13 is going to be a long one, but it's the last chapter. It's the last chapter. Then we have the afterword. So we got about that much to read. One chapter. I think this is going to be the biggest chapter. This is the biggest chapter of the book. We'll finish it though. We're almost there. We're going to push through. We're going to push through and finish the book. Almost there. We're on the down slope, the ass end. So, but yeah, hey man, within the book so far, man, the subject, the comedians have gone through so much from the time that they start jigging and jiving and trying to use their humor to get away from the hardships of life that they had at that time. You know, I think that the laughter is something that people that can be equated to the like when they ask, why are we still here after all that's been done, you know, to the so-called African Americans and stuff like that? They still here. Yeah, really. Laughter. Laughter is the healing for the soul, man. Laughter. We kept healing ourselves. But anyway, yeah, but let's get it, man. We are going to push through with chapter 13. Let's jump right into it today, man. On the Real Side by Mr. Mel Watkins. Chapter 13, Prior and Thereafter. On the real side, baby. On the real side. Richard Pryor is the groundbreaker. For most of us, he was the inspiration to get into comedy and also showed us that you can be black and have a black voice and be successful. Mr. Keenan Ivory Wayans. If Charlie Chaplin had found the street language to match his low-life tramp movements, he might have been something like Richard Pryor, who's all of a piece. A master of lyrical obscenity, Pryor is the only great poet satirist among our comics. Pauline Kael. Now, Pryor is certain of one thing. He is proudly, assertively a nigger, the first comedian to speak in the raw, brutal, but often wildly hilarious language of the streets. Hey, shalom, shalom, everybody. Come on in, come on in. Shiloh is here to begin. I'm Shiloh. The magazine. Section 1. Yeah, I think it's a good idea. If you don't think it's a good idea, why are you looking at somebody reading? Yeah, but anyway. In 1963, When Richard Pryor decided to abandon the Midwestern Chitlin Circuit tour and take a shot at the New York City and the big time, a tentative but innovative rapprochement had been established between white audiences and a select group of black comedians. The transitional comics of the 50s, like Rogers, White, Kirby, and Russell, had made inroads and in varying degrees Dick Gregory, Bill Cosby, and Godfrey Cambridge all had bridged the racial impasse. Now, every joke calls for a public of its own, and laughing at the same jokes is evidence of a reaching physical conformity. Sigmund Freud wrote, these comedians had discovered that elusive common ground on which many blacks and whites in the 60s could share laughter and humor. It was a crucial breakthrough, not only in the public expression of genuine African American humor, but also in forthright communication between the races. Now, still, the process of interracial joking on stage was being enacted within relatively restricted terrain. The areas staked out by these pioneers, the grounds on which they initially found acceptance, had a distinctly intellectual cast. This was an ironic, perhaps even startling development, since white Americans' traditional perception of Negroes as naive or childlike and simple, which effectively denied recognition of any deliberate ridicule or satire, had been one of the key impediments to acknowledging black humor. Now, Steve Allen suggests as much when he argues that our society would not permit the emergence of black comedians who were the equivalent of Bob Hope, much less any that were the equivalent of a Lenny Bruce or a Mort Sahl. Now, Jack Schiffman's explanation of why the efforts of black comics were rejected as unworthy of attention for years and years was even more incisive. Now, the principal reason, I believe, is that comedy is more like intellectual art than say, dance, which is directed towards our visual senses, or music, which may be enjoyed intellectually, but must be enjoyed orally, emotionally, and sensually. Comedy has to be brought about to be understood at all. Its appeal is to ideas rather than feelings or even images. In my judgment, according comedy its due place would have required an acknowledgement by white America that blacks did, in fact, possess intelligence and the ability to think. It would have required a tacit admission that all the slander about a lack of black intelligence was false. Now, despite his narrow definition of comedy, for instance, much slapstick comedy arguably does not require an intellectual response. Now, Schiffman's remarks are insightful. From that period of slavery, when Frederick Douglass and others wrote of the advantages accruing to those slaves who presented themselves as happy or slow-witted, and the perils faced by those who appeared sullen or impotent, to the mid-20th century so-called smart niggas were deemed uppity and impudent, a distinction that often resulted in physical reprisal or, at the least, ostracism and the loss of white favor. Now, racial relationships in America had largely been shaped by the tacit accord that dictated that blacks avoid challenging white intellectual superiority. Don't make them, you better not be no smart nigga. You better not be no smart nigga. That don't sound too smart was a thing. Not sounding too smart definitely was a thing. The pink people didn't like that. Didn't like that. There we go. It was an arrangement that not only permeated everyday interracial exchanges, but molded black comic routines on stage. Now, African-American comedians were accepted as clowns and gestures, but were expected to avoid satire and social commentary, that comedy of ideas. Given this tradition, the breakthrough of Black intellectual comedians was truly remarkable. And despite their assertiveness and frequent skewering of America's inequitable racial arrangements, however, their comedy routines were couched in a non-ethic mainstream voice or presented with a polite, tranquil veneer that belied any notion of deep-seated unrest or hidden fury. It was a far cry from the traditional stage Negro's guise of duplicitous idiocy, but it still lacked the stylistic flourish and raw, razor-sharp edge that characterized much Black street humor. Now, as Dick Gregory's mounting bitterness and increasingly more biting humor confirmed, much of the early softening of his satire had simply been the price of acceptance. His early circumspection, there we go, no more reflected his actual attitude than stoic imperturbability. What a word. Imperturbability. Imperturbability. Let's look it up. I-M-P-E-R. Imperturbability. Oh Lord. Imperturbability. 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 Let's see what it means, man. Hey, I'll take all the comments, man. I'll take all the comments. Let's see if we can find this word. I-M-P-E-R. Impert. Impertence, it's not in here. Let's check the other one. Let's check the other one. Oh Lord. I hate when I can't find certain words. I don't want to Google it. I want to look it up. Imperturbal. Imperturbability. Imperturbability. I hope I'm saying that right. What are you talking about? Bruh, whatever your name is. Where's the damn M? Imperturbable. Imperturbability. There we go. The word means is not allowing interest or passage. A stoic, his actual attitude, then a stoic not capable of being damaged, reflected Jackie Robinson's true feeling. A stoic not capable of being disturbed, not capable of being harmed, not allowing entrance or passage, imperturbability, imperturbability. All right. His early circumspection no more reflected his actual attitude than stoic imperturbability reflected Jackie Robinson's true feelings in the face of threats and racial insults when he broke the color line in Major League Baseball in 1947. Now, nevertheless, these early 60s comics established the model by which other aspiring crossover black comedians would be judged. For the brash and ambitious Richard Pryor, that model was as constricting as a proper, elegantly made British shoe that was several sizes too small. Now, before arriving in New York, Pryor had shown the unpredictable side of his nature on several occasions. His outbursts, whether inspired by personal demons or his tolerance of social hypocrisy, would soon become legendary. Now, as a teenager in the Army, he had seen violent run-ins with fellow enlistees. He had been jailed for 35 days in Pittsburgh after being convicted on assault and battery charges brought by his girlfriend. And his fulminations in the Youngstown, Ohio nightclub had not only revealed his determined ambition and short fuse, but also, as many of his personal debacles would in the future, provide a rich source of material for his comedy act. Debacles. You know, some of these words, you know, when I come like debacles, are definitely just words. You know, people really don't use those words anymore. At least I don't hear people use those words like debacles. It is not something you come across in, you know, the most things people read is text messages or emails. I don't think, you know, a debacle is not a word. You know, I mean, it's not a word that that majority of people would use in any text. I'm gonna have to start using words like these. You trying to have me set up in this debacle? You done got yourself into a debacle here. You know, with having children, you know, one of the things I have to do is try to find words and use other words that I'm not going to say that they don't know. Oh, you Shalom, you're back up. Shalom, my boy. Oh, my son. Oh, you up. Oh, my son, Shalom. You feeling all right? Yes, sir. Did you have a debacle? Are you in a debacle right now? I got you in a debacle. Oh, my boy. The debacle. Oh, debacle. Where is it? Where is debacle? I need to write that. A debacle. Hypocrisy. A debacle. There we go. Debacles. Pryor, 19 or 20 years old at the time, confronted the allegedly mob-connected owners of the club after a female singer had come to him in tears complaining that they had refused to pay her. More than 20 years later, in his concert film Live on Sunset Strip in 1982, Pryor transformed that confrontation into a hilarious comic routine. I had a cap pistol, you know, them black starter pistols. I busted into the office with the motherfucker talking about, all right, give me the money, motherfucker. You don't need to be in here while I'm reading this, boy. You don't need to be in here while I'm reading this, boy. What did I do? What did I do? Oh, you were scared. Oh, you were scared. I had a cap pistol. You know, them blank starter pistols. I busted into the office with the motherfucker talking about, all right, give me the money, motherfucker. Doing my best black shit, you know, mugging, grimacing. That shit usually scared Whitey to death. And these motherfuckers didn't do nothing. I'm sure that those men are sitting in that office today laughing. He just started laughing. This fucking kid. Hey, Tony, come here. Stick up. This fucking kid. Come here. He's got a pair of gagoozies. He's got a pair of gagoozies on him. Hey, you want a little casserone? Hey, Paula, fix him a little. Put some shroogie on it. Fry it up. They like fried food. They paid everybody off. Let everybody go. Kept me like a pet. You got a way home? You want us to give you a ride? You know, Pryor ended the routine with a bit of disturbing but typical candid dark humor. Don't go out with the mafia, because you can't buy them dinner. If you say, let me buy it tonight. Hey, kid, let me tell you something. We're crime, and crime don't pay. You know, Pryor's turbulent personal life, his inflammatory public outbursts, his chaotic relationships with women, his drug use, brawls, and run-ins with the law have been thoroughly documented in a raft of books and articles. Since many of these public transgressions and personal setbacks have surfaced in his comedy, many commentators have suggested that there is an intricate connection between his erratic personal behavior and his comedy act. Now, analysts, from colleagues to journalists, typically assume that his humor is either inspired or impeded by the alleged instability and mercurial mood shifts. Now, rarely has the age-old temptation to connect genius with neurosis been more overindulged. Now, few comedians have been subjected to the type of pseudo-psychological and ad hominem interpretations. Whew, a string of long words. Few comedians have been subjected to the type of pseudo-psychological ad hominem interpretations that mark discussions of Pryor's life and work. Now, Paul Schrader, Pryor's director in Blue Collar in 1978, for example, claimed Richard's an enigma in that he's totally tortured by inherent contradictions in his personality. The more successful he is in the white world, the more resentful he becomes, the more afraid that he is not black enough. In the view of the writer William Brashler, Pryor was a man torn between his resentment of being black and what it means to be black in this country, and his desire to be big, the biggest in the white-oriented, white-run industry. Burt Reynolds said, Richard is capable of bringing genuine punishment upon himself. He seeks it out because, like all of us, he wonders if he deserves success. He's frightened. He's a person of supreme intelligence. You can see that by his material, by his insights. But because he formally has only a 9th grade education, he believes he's not bright. Pryor's former manager and attorney, David Franklin, he said. Now, Sally Hansen, the costume designer and friend, speculates that Pryor's wellspring of humor comes from pain. He had, a really rough upbringing. such a painful childhood that the only survival was humor. And Steve Allen contends that, as so often seems to be the case, his comic genius is balanced by, perhaps even inseparable from, a pattern of erratic behavior and social irresponsibility that constantly gets him into trouble. Now, clearly, Pryor has inspired much unsubstantiated conjecture about the basis of his sometimes bizarre behavior and the connection between pain or eccentricity and comic genius. Now, as Pryor might have quipped some years ago, if hard times and pain made good comedians, every nigga in America would be a superstar. The suggestion that the tone and content of Pryor's humor is derived from his natural comic ability, offered by the comedian Dan Aykroyd, seems more accurate than most other theories. If you're born with it, if it's in the chemistry, in the blood, no matter what happens, you're going to try and see the worst possible world situation as a humorous one. He has just always been a satirist, a wit, a caustic. This is the way his mind and soul work. Now, theories concerning the inspiration of Pryor's humor aside, there is little doubt that his stark adolescent experiences set him apart from such early 60s Black comedians as Russell, Gregory, Cosby, and Cambridge. Although some facts vary in specific recounting by Pryor, the basic details of his background have been confirmed. His grandmother, Marie, ran a string of whorehouses in Peoria, Illinois, that catered to locals as well as transients, including the entertainers and vaudeville performers who passed through Peoria, a lively stop on both the mainstream and Black vaudeville circuit during the 30s and 40s. The old show business expression, will it play in Peoria, reflects the city's previous stature as a show town. Now, Maria's son, Leroy, eventually entered the family business and married Gertrude Thomas, one of the prostitutes, after she became pregnant by him. Their son, Richard, was born in 1940 and, like the rest of his family, lived in one of the brothels. Now, still, both Pryor's grandmother and mother insisted that he attend church and worked to instill in the boy middle-class values that would permit him to better himself. My parents were honest, he said. They had great dignity. My mother taught me about being decent, but the illicit sexuality and often violent reality of brothel life were also part of Pryor's daily routine. He described it as fantasy-like. It was an adventure. It was two worlds. And indeed, the clash of experiences, watching his mother and other prostitutes entertain customers through transoms on the brothel doors and listening to earnest entreaties by his grandmother and mother to develop proper values, exposed the young Pryor to a chilling dilemma. Although he may have reconciled this moral paradox as long as he remained in an insular world presided over by his grandmother's loving reassurances, the outside world soon intervened. When he was 6, his grandmother enrolled him in the Catholic school, but when school authorities discovered the nature of the family's business, he was quickly expelled. The real world's estimate of Pryor's exotic home life was indelibly imprinted. To experience corruption and dignity in such intimate proximity, a newspaper journalist wrote, explains a lot about the contradictions of Pryor's life and art. In addition to the extreme circumstances of his family's involvement in prostitution, like nearly every other African American of his generation, as a youth, Pryor soon discovered that to much of the outside world, he was a member of a despised minority. The word nigger in his pariah status in mainstream society became realities for him shortly after he began attending public school. To the supersensitive Pryor, it was a devastating revelation. Like many successful comedians, however, Pryor had demonstrated a knack for comedy at an early age. He was a practical joker and a class cut-up during his adolescence. A frail, skinny kid, he soon began using his quick wit and belligerent humor to ingratiate himself with bigger, more violent teenagers in neighborhood street gangs and gain a measure of status among his peers. The ploy worked on the street. Pryor was usually successful at smart alecking his way out of trouble. But although his antic behavior and assertive repartee delighted his classmates, they were disruptive in classrooms and contributed to his estrangement from teachers and eventual abandonment of formal education. Now, before leaving school in the 9th grade, however, Pryor had 2 educational experiences that helped to shape his future. Now, in the 6th grade, one teacher agreed to let the 12-year-old Pryor entertain his classmates for 10 minutes once a week if he cut down on classroom disturbances and got to school on time every day. Pryor took up the challenge and began developing material for his weekly performances. The arrangement not only temporarily ignited his interest in school, but no doubt also contributed to his confidence as a performer. A year later, he met Juliet Whitaker, a drama major, who, after graduation from the University of Iowa, came to Peoria to direct the Carver Community Center. She took special interest in Pryor, whom she later called a 14-year-old genius, and convinced him to join the drama group. Although he quit the group when he was 16, Pryor later recalled his experience on stage at the Carver Center and Whitaker's support were crucial events in his development as an entertainer. By the time Pryor arrived in New York City in 1963, he had worked odd jobs around Peoria, fathered a child, married, served 2 years in the Army, and spent several years in the black club circuit. The experience that set him apart from his college-educated black counterparts were in place, even though he had not developed the resolve and technique to exploit them fully. Still, his raw talent prevailed, working such Greenwich Village clubs as the Cafe Wow. Now, Pryor freely copied the styles of other black comedians, particularly Bill Cosby, of whom he said, "This nigga doing what I'm fixing to do." Within a year, he was being described as a rising young star, and critics at Variety were commenting on his avant-garde viewpoint, healthy instinct for irreverence, and feeling of expression. Pryor was moving up quickly, but he had developed neither the style nor the comic material that would ultimately establish him as America's #1 comedian. He was still working in the shadow of Cosby and Gregory. Now, although he acknowledged that he was probably the worst joke teller in the world and had turned more to stories in which he assumed the parts of the different characters before white audiences, he shied away from the more profane ghetto voices that often appeared in his act before black crowds and eventually would dominate his work. The choice was partly his own. A lack of confidence in his ability to make those characters acceptable to whites. As Paul Revine noted in Richard Pryor, Black and Blue, Pryor viewed the Cosby style as the road to success. A chorus of advisors also encouraged him to take that path. Now, one agent, for example, told him, "Don't mention the fact that you're a nigga. Be the kind of colored guy we'd like to have over to our house." Now, I introduced Bill Cosby to my mother, but a guy like you, Bill Grumfus, owner of the Comedy Cellar in New York, accentuated the point when he said, in in those days, if Pryor hadn't done what we would consider not whitewash material, Oreo material, he never would have gotten to Times Square or to Square One, excuse me. Compromise was a necessity of the time. Pryor recalled that they were going to help me to be nothing as best they could. Still, he compromised. And within a year of his arrival in New York, he branched out to other village clubs and soon was booked into a few of the Catskills resort hotels. Now, pegged as another non-racial comic, the next Bill Cosby, in 1964, he made his first television appearance on Rudy Valley's On Broadway Tonight. There was little love of the poise and swagger associated with vintage Pryor on that night. The rail thin 23-year-old was diffident and hesitant, clapping anxiously at his own jokes and nervously segueing with, "Wait, I got more to tell you," or a differential "thank you." His narrative voice was pure white bread, and except for a hillbilly type, so were the characters. After announcing that he was from Peoria, he opened with, "When I was young, I used to think my people didn't like me because they used to send me to the store for bread and they'd move." Then, after a physical routine about the perils of opening a can of evaporated milk with a butcher knife and a quick impression of spastic Jerry Lewis, I watch a lot of advertising on television commercials. Really funny. Like the woman, "Honey, I got a giant in my washer." "Yeah, well, it better be gone before I get home." Followed by a little dark humor. My favorite commercial, a kid in bed, and they get real dramatic, right? They play it up real big. A kid's laying in bed in deep, sonorous voice. 9:15, Tommy Jones can't sleep, and they cut to Tommy Jones. "Ah, mommy, I can't breathe." His mama comes rushing in. "Good, it's working." The concluding segment of the act begins with a nasal voice of the hillbilly character that would become the permanent part of Pryor's repertoire. "I heard a knock on the door. I said to my wife, 'There's a knock on the door.' My wife said, 'That's peculiar. We ain't got no door.'" When the character confronts an intruder who enters the house, Pryor's voice switches to a facsimile of Bill Cosby's rapid-fire everyman's accent. "I grabbed the cook. That was the wrong move. He threw me down, I got up. He knocked me down, I got up. He kicked me down, I got up. He said, 'Get up.' I said, 'Ha ha.' Then my wife threw him across the furniture. She slapped me. The police came. She beat them up. They took her away. Me and the crook living happily ever after." Although the material is innocuous compared to his latter routines, Pryor made it funny. He had not yet developed his masterful use of the body language and facial expressions, but there was a skittish energy to his performance, a youthful exuberance and vulnerability that was disarming. He offered, in his words, white bread humor, which was often juvenile but perfect for television in the mid-60s. Now, soon Pryor was appearing on Johnny Carson's Tonight Show and the Ed Sullivan and Merv Griffin shows. His career was taking off, and bookings were being offered in uptown New York clubs as well as in Las Vegas. Sounds like I was about to say Cat Williams, but it's not Cat. Charleston. Sounds like my boy Charleston White, who just, not that long got that residency in Las Vegas. It seems like shit like that is still happening if he got a comedic residency to do a comedy show in Vegas, for a time period. It seems like it's the same thing. It seems like it's the same variety show of the same vaudeville acts, the same type of scenario, where these people who were in charge back in the day of who gonna make it, who not gonna make it, are still in charge today, and they still pulling the puppet strings, and maneuvering who they want to maneuver, how they want to maneuver, where they want to maneuver. Don't seem like much has changed, regardless of the advancements that were made or were given, were the hurdles that were jumped over by such people as Richard Pryor and Bill Cosby. Pigmeat Mark Ham, Moms Mabley, and others that the book refers to. But even as his star rose, he was having second thoughts about the nature of his act. Pryor was becoming not only disenchanted with constant comparisons to Cosby, but also annoyed with club owners, agents, and advisors who insisted that he refrain from using street language and adding more biting racial material to his act. In 1966 and 1967, despite resistance, he began developing and using more ethnic material. Some of it would appear on the first album. Now, Richard Pryor in 1969, although not nearly as trenchant as the routines he would present in the 70s, his super nigga bit is a good example of this transitional material. In reading this, which I'm almost done, like a page and a half left to read, but in reading these things, it gets to some points, like the point that I'm about to read. I wish I would have seen the bit, Richard Pryor's bit, so that way whenever I read it, I have some kind of inclination of how the tonality and the accentuations of facial expressions and body language can go, so therefore I can give it a proper portrayal of what he was trying to say, because right now the reading of it is going to be skewed based on, because I don't know how he, it's probably going to be parts of it going to be funny, but the inflections and the punctuations on the things he was trying to get across to the audience, I don't have that right now. I always thought why they never have a black hero. I always wanted to go to the movies and see a black hero. I figured out maybe someday on television they'll have it. Man, look up in the sky. It's a crow. It's a bat. No, it's super nigga. Able to leap tall buildings with a single bound. Faster than a bowl of chitlins. We find super nigga with his X-ray vision that enables him to see through everything except Whitey. We find super nigga disguised as Clark Washington, mild-mannered custodian of the Daily Planet, shuffling into Perry White's office. Hey man, I'm quitting, baby. Great Caesar's ghost. I remember when they used to say that shit. I'm gonna say that shit with my sons. I'm gonna say that shit later on. Great Caesar's ghost. Great Caesar's ghost. I can't talk to you now. Talk to me, Jack, because I'm ready to quit, man. I've had it up to here, you dig? Tired of doing them hauls. Every time I finish, Lois Lane and them come slipping and sliding down through their and I have to do it all over again. You dig it, baby? I'm through. Fire me. I can't talk to you now. The warehouse is on fire. What warehouse? Warehouse 86. Damn, that's where I got my stash. This looks like a job for super nigga. Pryor also introduced his Black Ben routine, which was set in the Southern prison and called Prison Play on his first album. In it, a redneck guard objects to this theme of play about to be presented by an acting group, a Southern white girl falling in love with a slave. And until he is reassured that the nigger gets killed, bit, bit, bits such as smells, an irreverent toast to funkiness began to assume the shape of rhythmic pace, if not the satirical content of his later material. Now, deodorants are dangerous, man. Don't you ever read on a deodorant can? They say, caution, contents highly inflammable, may explode. I don't know about you people, but I don't want nothing under my arm that's gonna explode. Because you can be walking down the street, sounds of explosion. Boom! Well, what's the hell the matter with him? I don't know. He don't smell, though. Oh, Shalom. Oh, Shalom, how you doing today? Oh, my boy. All praises to the Most High. Oh, he saw fit to wake you up today. Oh, how you feeling? Oh, let me look at you. Oh, look at you, man. You're so handsome. You have your eyes. You got your ears. You can think. You can feel. You can smell. You have everything you need for today. You have everything that you need to succeed. Yeah!
Daddy, he looks the same as him because he have a ladder and he have a ladder.
All right, let me finish reading. I'm almost done.
He
You feeling okay?
same. Yes, sir.
Is anything hurting?
Yes, sir.
Oh!
Daddy, he looks the same because they both have ladders.
All right, let me finish. Okay, there we go. In other routines, he started drawing directly on Black community attitudes, frequently in a less than positive vein. Used to be some beautiful Black men would come through the neighborhood dressed in African shit, real nice shit, and they be peace, love, Black is beautiful. Remember the essence of life. We are a people of the universe. Life is beautiful. My parents would go, that nigga crazy. In these bits, Pryor began introducing more street types and observations, mirroring the inflections and intonations of Black street patois. He also refined the intricate interplay between his narrative voice and his characters, moving closer to the comedy style that Rolling Stone would call a new type of realistic theater. The non-ethnic facade and debt to Cosby and others were fading, and the metamorphosis had been partly expedited by his work at Bud Friedman's Improvisation Comedy Club in Midtown Manhattan. Now, opening in 1963 as a coffee house and hangout for Broadway performers, with the old village spot turning to rock formats, the Improv was transformed into a comedy club in 1965. The ambiance was casual and informal, and according to Friedman, it was one of the hippest places in town. Pryor was a frequent visitor and tried out some of his more authentic material before white and mixed audiences there. He was apparently very much at ease in this loose atmosphere. And on one occasion, while a female singer was performing, Pryor paraded before the stage nude except for shoes and a hat. The incident caused no great furor, but did prompt Friedman's wife to comment, well, there goes another myth. More importantly, Pryor was able to experiment with both the Blacker comic voice and improvisational character-based vignettes. that combined comedy with pathos and drama. The concept of story theater appeared early in the improv, Freeman says, when Dave Astor, Roy Carrier, Carey and Richard did an act together. Dave would recite a story, and Richard and Ron would act it out. Despite the comparative freedom of the improv and the introduction of new, more genuinely black material, pressure to present the staid routines that had initially made him popular still rankled. Now, even fulfillment of his lifelong dream, his first movie role, a small part in The Busybody in 1966, in which Godfrey Cambridge also appeared, failed to satisfy Pryor's thirst for creative expansion. Now, I made a lot of money being Bill Cosby, he said, but I was hiding my personality. I just wanted to be in show business so bad I didn't care how. It started bothering me later because I was being successful at it. I was being a robot comic, repeating the same lines, getting the same laughs for the same jokes. The repetition was killing me. And Pryor's frustration surfaced dramatically when he went crazy, cracked up, or had what he described as a nervous breakdown on stage at the Las Vegas hotel. That public repudiation of the middle of the road robot comic image dramatically hastened the emergence of the real Richard Pryor. And that was section 1. That was section 1 of chapter 13 on the real side. Richard Pryor and beyond, or excuse me, Pryor and thereafter. Pryor and thereafter. Yeah, a couple of words I got stuck on, but hey, for the most part, they're good reading. I think good reading. We're gonna put I'm coming. I got you. I got some sweatpants for you, don't worry. Let's look at some of these comments. Wait, I'm gonna come get you some sweatpants. Man, some of these, comments. Be crazy. All right. Some of these comments don't even make sense, but hey, I ain't tripping. All comments help to boost the lives, so I ain't tripping. I am not tripping. But we're almost done with the book, man. We are almost done. We finished section 1. Hey, a lot faster than I thought. It took us about an hour, but a lot faster than I thought. Section 1. We have, I think, 3 sections in this chapter before we get to the afterward. Section 2. And 2's not that long. About the same. Section 3. Section 2 and section 3. That's it. Section 2, 3 sections. Section 3 is going to be the longest section out of this chapter. Make sure it's just 3 sections. And then we have the afterward. I'll probably pick a day whenever and we'll just read through the whole. We'll have to just read through the whole afterward. I won't take a break that day. We'll just read through the whole afterward and finish the book. So we have about three sessions. 3 sessions of on the real. 3 sessions of reading. 3 sessions of reading left. You almost there, baby. That book, man, it's a big one. It's a big one for me. A big one for me. But all praises, man. All praises. We moving along. I'm moving along, man. We out here. I'm out here. The more books we read, sometimes that's all it takes. Sometimes people don't, they might have some ideas or something wrong with people reading, but hey, if you want to hide something from a nigga, put it in a book. That's what they say. That's what the saying has been. Put it in a book. So let's see what they hid in the books, baby. That's why they, say that. But then at the same time, they want to destroy the books because they know the stuff that's in the books. That's crazy to me. You put shit in the books. The establishment will tell people to pick themselves and pull themselves up by the bootstraps and shit like that. You need to read more. You need to become more intellectual and things of that nature. Expand your vocabulary. And the only way to do these things is by reading. And the minute you try to start advancing yourself in reading, now they have a problem with that. Why are you advancing yourself? Why are you trying to succeed? Why are you trying to build up your mental so that way you actually have the ability to see the bullshit we playing on you? But man, keep reading, man. I hope that the readings help somebody. Maybe it's something that is read that may get to you, man. May hit you a certain way. May cause you to think better about yourself, make better movements, better decisions in your life. Who knows? I'm not necessarily reading for that. I'm reading just to try to learn to read better, and I'm reading for my children. As well, that's what started it, for me to read for my children who are having problems reading and problems with their confidence in reading out loud. So I figured, shit, hey, if I go online and read and they see me reading, then, maybe it'll push them. Maybe it'll push them to have a little bit more confidence in themselves. Also, for the ones that can't see me, it gives them a chance to see me. If something happens to me, it gives them a chance to go back and get a different viewpoint of their father than maybe, their relatives may give them. It's a whole lot of different things. And if it helps somebody in the time period of me doing so, then hey, so be it. All praises. It's a plus. It's a plus. Shit. There's many things I would like to be able to read. The ability to read simultaneously in multiple languages is definitely a skill I would like to have as well. But that one's going to take some doing because I have to learn the languages. And right now, all I know for sure is this broken ass English. Broken ass English that we're taught. This spell casting language that we're taught. But it is what it is, man. But like I say, man, we're going to keep pushing, man. One book at a time, one chapter at a time, one section at a time, one page at a time, one line at a time, line upon line, here a little, there a little, till we finish the book, man, till we get some understanding, something. But till we finish the book, and we're going to see if there's anything that we can learn and grow from in any of these books. And hopefully there is. I know there's definitely been stuff for me. Hopefully there's something for you. But until next time, man, I'm SHILO. Thank you for showing up for this section of Reading with SHILO. We out here. House of SHILO is out here. And I'm out, man. Like, comment, subscribe. Hey, hit me up. Let me know something. Shalom.